Welcome to this interview on Sleep Science Friday. My name is Walter McNicholas. I'm a consultant in respiratory sleep medicine at St. Vincent's Hospital in Dublin and professor at University College Dublin. And it's my pleasure to welcome my colleague Timo Leppänen to this interview, who will answer a number of questions. Welcome, Timo.
Thank you, Walter. Thanks for interviewing me. I'm Timo Leppänen, Associate Professor at the University of Eastern Finland, one of the leaders of the Sleep Revolution project, and also a work package leader in the project.
Thanks. Would you, for the benefit of our participants in this interview, would you please give an overview of the Sleep Revolution project and its objectives?
Yes, so Sleep Revolution project is EU Horizon 2020 funded project worth of almost 15 million euros, and it's for 4 years. So the project started in March 21 and will last until end of February 25. So we are roughly halfway through on the project. The project contains 39 partners around the Europe and from nearly 20 countries in total. So we are covering whole Europe from north to south and west to east, and also we have one partner from Australia. We have also strong support from ANSS, ESRS, ERS, which are supporting and participating in our project, and also several companies are involved. So technically we have 4 aims or objectives in our project. The first is that we want to update the current clinical diagnostic tools for sleep disorder breathing. So that means that we want to develop the measurement devices we are using. We want to update the guidelines, how the recording should be interpreted, and we want to update or develop the new analysis tools for those recordings. The second aim is that we want to bring these advanced diagnostics from labs to homes. So when developing new tools, algorithms, updating rules, we want to ensure that they are simple enough for self-applicants at homes. And in third, what we are going to do in the project is that we want the patients to participate more heavily on their own health. So, for example, with wearable solutions, we could do the screening of sleep disorder breathing with very simple wearables like smartwatches and use phone-based applications. And then develop personalized treatment solutions. So, not providing CPAP for all, but based on the phenotyping and endotyping, we would like to tailor the treatment options or solutions we offer for our patients.
Thank you. Traditionally, the sleep medicine community has been suspicious of automated analysis and view this approach as inferior to manual analysis. How does machine learning and other tools employed by Sleep Revolution overcome these limitations?
That's very, very good point, because the community definitely has some doubts about the automatic tools. And I think that's because those automatic tools, they are coming into field and clinical field now, so they are new. And also another thing is that many times they are so-called black boxes, so we don't actually know what they're looking for from the signals. So, but at this point, I think it's very important to keep in mind that those automatic tools, they don't need to be actually the inferior for manual analysis. But of course, they have to be at least as accurate as manual analysis. If we can reach the same level of accuracy than human scorers, they are still highly beneficial, even though they are not inferior. How we are trying to increase the trust towards automatic tools in the project is, one of them is that we are comparing the accuracy to manual scoring. So we are calculating the inter-rater agreement between specialist clinicians, and when we are able to show that accuracy of automatic tools is par with the disagreement between the clinicians, we can consider that automatic tools is as accurate as human scores. The second thing is that we are going to take those automatic tools as a part in our prospective trials. We are doing prospective trials so that we have two different pathways. We have a conventional pathway, and then we have a so-called sleep revolution pathway, where we are doing lots of different things. In one of those things, we are using automatic tools to analyze the collected data. And when the clinicians and technicians, they see in practice that these automatic tools are actually accurate, I think that increases the trust towards them and helps in implementation in clinical practice. And third thing is that we are highlighting gray areas. And what we mean about gray areas is that one thing is that those automatic tools, they can pinpoint the certain parts of the recordings where they are unsure. So clinicians can go back and check those gray areas, do manual analysis only for those parts, and rest of the recording is handled by automatic tools. And also we have information collected from the disagreement between human scorers. We can see what kind of parts of the recordings are those where human scorers disagree the most. So we can also develop automatic tools so that it pinpoints those areas. And again, clinicians can go and check those parts manually.
Thanks. Well, what you described there is certainly no black box, and it certainly would be a considerable advance on the existing field. Can you tell us how will the outputs of the project improve the diagnosis and management of patients with sleep disordered breathing?
I hope that when successful, it will improve it in many different layers, from screening to treatment to cost reduction. So when we are tackling screening of sleep disordered breathing, we can do that much efficiently than it's done in nowadays. So not providing the type 3 device, which is now the common practice, for example, in many countries, we could do screening with simple questionnaires and wearables like smartwatches. In that way, we can diagnose more patients and get those patients treated that actually need treatment the most. And I also think that this could provide more accurate diagnosis, because these simple devices are less disruptive for patients, and the measurements are done at patients' home. So they most probably sleep more normally than they would do in a sleep lab. These automatic tools are one key aspect in the project. We can analyze more things from the recordings. For example, sleep staging, that could be done in 1 second epochs instead of 30-second epochs, which is not feasible to do in the clinical practice because of the manual workload. And even though we could screen much more patients that we are now doing, it actually doesn't increase the workload that much, I think, because we have these automatic tools that can analyze the recordings much faster. So in the same amount of time, we could do much more recordings or screening or diagnosis. And these automatic tools, they also provide better ways to estimate or do phenotyping and endotyping of patients, which gives us the possibility to find the patients who are at the highest risk for severe comorbidities, for example, and then highest need for treatment. And this endotyping, phenotyping can make possible to tailor the treatment options, not just to provide a CPAP to everybody, but also provide another treatments or combination of different treatments. Of course, there are some obstacles or issues we have to be aware of when we are doing these kind of things, that if we are able to screen everybody, let's say, and we are providing diagnosing everybody who should be diagnosed, then we are just shifting the bottleneck on the treatment side. Then we have another problem, how we can treat all these patients. And that's why also in the project we are investigating a different type of treatments and which type of treatments are most efficient to different type of people. And the last thing, the cover, is the socio-economical impact, which we are investigating. So at the same time, when we are improving the diagnosis and management, we would like to decrease the overall cost for the healthcare system. So I would bet that if we can screen and diagnose more patients, we can reduce the risk for severe and expensive comorbidities like stroke, for example, or heart failure. The overall economical burden for the society hopefully decreases.
Thank you. There's a lot of discussion at present regarding the limitations of the AHI in assessing disease severity, and especially the risk of comorbidity. Can you give us some insight as to how Sleep Revolution will address this aspect?
Yes, I think there is 3 main things, maybe 4, I would like to mention here. The first thing is this type of 3-dimensional model, which we want to use to estimate the severity of sleep disorder breathing. So we can think it to be like a cube. So we have 3 different axes: respiratory events, acute system effect, and chronic end organ impact. So at the moment, we have the AHI, which now represents the respiratory event axis. But that can be also not only the number of the events, but also the duration of the events. Then we have another axis, y-axis, which is acute systemic effect. So what those respiratory events are causing. So we have desaturations, how long, how deep they are. We have arousals, what's magnitude, duration of the arousals. We have blood pressure changes, things like that. And then we have a third axis, z-axis, chronic end organ impact. So what are the symptoms, comorbidities of sleep disorder breathing? For example, stroke or hypertension. And based on the combined effect of respiratory events and their cause, we would like to estimate the risk for certain outcomes and kind of map the severity inside that cube. Second thing is new parameters. We don't necessarily want to replace the AHI, but provide new parameters to supplement it. So one parameter is the desaturation severity of the desaturations, maybe also resaturations, also known as the hypoxic burden. We are calculating different type of metrics from blood oxygen saturation signal, for example, and separating those desaturation events, calculating desaturation slope, resaturation slope, lots of different things. Also, we can calculate envelopes for breathing signals, for example, and based on the envelope analysis, provide new parameters like medians or standard deviations of the envelopes and things like that, and use that to estimate severity of OSA, for example. And of course, third thing is this machine learning, unsupervised, supervised learning, semi-supervised, and so on. We want to use raw signals without any scorings as the input for the algorithms. For example, EEG, EKG, just give the signal to algorithms to find the features and characteristics from the signals that are the best to predict certain outcomes. Risk for comorbidities, risk for short-time symptoms like daytime sleepiness or impaired vigilance, because we have so huge amount of data, for example, only in the EEG and EKG signals, that is completely overlooked if we are using the AHI only. So there is huge possibility to find kind of features, biomarkers, characteristics that are heavily linked to different comorbidities and outcomes. But at the end of the day, we have to also keep in mind what we are estimating. So even though there has been a criticism, we have to be also aware what we are estimating. For example, daytime sleepiness. The ESS has also got some criticisms to be suboptimal to estimate daytime sleepiness. And to overcome this, we have developed the European Sleep Questionnaire in the project, for example, to better represent the daytime sleepiness or psychomotor vigilance task. We are now using a number of lapses or median reaction time, which are very simple measurements from the PVT time series. But we could also use the time series more beneficially and calculate, for example, variation in the reaction times to estimate the implied vigilance.
Well, thank you, Timo, for such a comprehensive overview and explanation of the procedures and objectives of the Sleep Revolution project. It's a very exciting project, and assuming successful outcomes, we can look forward to a paradigm shift in our approach to both the diagnosis and subsequent management of our patients with sleep disordered breathing. So thank you very much, and thanks to all who have watched this interview. Goodbye.
Thank you and goodbye.